Hello, I'm Richard Ridge, and welcome to Broadway Beat, where we bring you the very best of what the New York theater scene has to offer. This week we look at two important plays which are back on Broadway. Arthur Miller's 1947 classic, All My Sons, is at the Show and Fell Theater with a new production directed by Simon McBurney and starring John Lithgow, Diane Wiest, Patrick Wilson, and making her Broadway debut, Katie Holmes. But let's start things off at the American Airlines Theater for Roundabout Theater Company's new production of Robert Bolt's 1961 historical drama, A Man for All Seasons, which welcomes back to Broadway three-time Tony Award winner Frank Langella as Sir Thomas More. Under the direction of Tony Award winner Doug Hughes, A Man for All Seasons is based on the fascinating true story of English Chancellor Sir Thomas More and his moral objection to King Henry VIII's plan to leave the Catholic Church.
Norfolk, you're a fool.
You can't place a quarrel. You haven't the style.
No, hear me out. You and your class have given in, as you rightly call it, because the religion of our country means nothing to you, one way or the other.
That's a foolish thing for a start. The nobility of England has always
The nobility of England, my lord, would have snored through the Sermon on the Mount.
We've had a great time rehearsing it, and it's amazing to me that it's the first time it's been revived on Broadway in, close to 50 years, 40 and change, and I think it's a good time to revive it.
Well, take me back to the beginning. Did you know the play well before you got involved with this?
I know I first saw this story told on film in the Fred Zinnemann movie. I've never seen a production of the play. I read the play when I was in school, and I've wanted to do it ever since. But it's been a long struggle. I've spent about 3 years reading it and carrying it around and thinking about it, and there have been various efforts to get it going, and finally everything came together here at the Roundabout, where I'm a resident director. And Frank has had a long history with this company, and he had time, and it all fell into place.
I feel great. I feel just very, very lucky to be here and doing this important play, and at this time, around election time, it's a really great play to do right now, given that it has to do with one's freedoms, and one's mental freedoms, and one's spiritual freedoms, and all of that is something that's being taken to task right now, and in this country and around the world, and it's a great play to be heard right now, I think.
And talk about the role that you play.
Well, I play Thomas Cromwell, who was he was a bureaucrat in Henry VIII's court who privatized the monasteries and basically robbed the clergy of a huge amount of money and stuck it into the king's vault, and and ultimately was beheaded himself because of the tyrant that he was working for. It was a very, very, very dangerous person to get very close to, and Thomas Cromwell got Henry VIII, and Thomas Cromwell got very close to him.
You can be cruel when you've a mind to be, but I've always known that.
What's the name of those dogs? What are they called? Marsh, mastiffs, bog beagles?
Water spaniels.
And what would you do with a water spaniel that was afraid of water? You'd hang it. Well, as a spaniel is to water, so is a man to himself. I will not give in because I oppose it. I do. Not my pride, not my spleen, nor any other of my appetites, but I do.
Richard Rich, I think, is for me, the role is about kind of the emotional and spiritual death of a person who, unlike Thomas More, lacks conviction and lacks a sort of moral center, so that he gets sort of further and further enmeshed in self-interest until it's too late to hear his own sound. So.
And talk about what it's been like working with this ensemble, particularly Mr. Frank Langella.
Oh, well, Frank is just the truth all the time. So it's been, a great honor for me as a young actor, and always a lesson in telling the truth and being simple, so.
William Roper, he's incredibly irreverent, he's impassioned, he's a firebrand, he could care less about what's appropriate and what isn't appropriate. He's going to speak his mind, come hell or high water, and that's a blast. to do, and to get there and have it, to be up there and have it out with Langella, and then also, to have the warmth in the relationship that they have. They develop a really affectionate bond, and it's a real pleasure.
The law, Rofer, the law. I know what's legal, not what's right, and I'll stick to what's legal.
When you set man's law above God's.
No, far below. But let me draw your attention to a fact. I'm not God. The currents and eddies of right and wrong, which you find such plain sailing, I can't navigate. I'm no voyager. But in the thickets of the law, there, I'm a forester.
Well, the main thing, of course, is working with Frank Langella, which for me is really a childhood dream come true. And I guess the dream of any American actor is to work with the person that you admired most growing up. I admired him most growing up, and so here I am. I get to work with Frank Langella. What's better than that?
And just about playing King Henry VIII, did you do research other than the play?
I did. I read the biographies and things like that, and found out that he was actually a much more complicated guy than most of the films and things like that give him credit for. And then, of course, after that, then you go back to the script and play what's on the page in this production, in this show, in Robert Bolt's Henry VIII, which is just a little different from history's Henry VIII. But hopefully you can, it all fills it out.
It's wonderful. I mean, it's very challenging because so much goes on in the silences. She takes huge leaps in her love, in her frustration, in her anger, her fear, and in the silences, in between lines. But very thrilling at the same time.
Working with Mr. Frank Langella
is a gift. It's a true gift.
Now listen, I have a word to say about that. I have made no statement. I have resigned. That's all. The King is made, by Act of Parliament, supreme head of the Church of England. This English Church will first divorce him from the Queen, then marry him to Lady Anne. But on any of these matters, have you heard me make a statement?
No. And if I'm to lose my rank and fall to housekeeping, I want to know the reason. So make a statement now.
No. It's a matter of law. Accept it from me, Alice, that silence is my safety under the law. But my silence must be absolute. It must extend to you.
In short, you don't trust us.
A man would have to be half-witted not to trust you. But look, I am the Lord Chief Justice. I'm Cromwell. I'm the King's head jailer. And I come to you, and I take your hand, and I clasp it on the Bible, on the blessed cross, and I say, woman, has your husband made a statement on these matters? Now, on peril of your soul, remember. What's your answer?
No.
And so it must remain.
How do you feel tonight?
Wonderful, wonderful. We had our opening nights are tricky. They can really drop down because the audience members are, well, cynical isn't the right word, but they've been around, they've seen a lot, so it takes a lot to grab them and hold them, and I think we did. Yeah.
And being home again at Roundabout, what that means to you?
Always wonderful. I'd work for Todd Hames anytime, any chance I got, and I love the Roundabout Theater. I love the crew, I love the staff, and I love this company of actors very much.
Let's just talk about the show a little bit. What a wonderful play. Tell me what you love about the play, the character, and working on him.
Well, it's the sort of theater I saw when I first came to New York in the early 60s. Large plays, large casts, epics, costume drama, big sets, and a theme, a story that you can relate to in a very powerful way. It's about soul and conscience, and it's about integrity. And those things are worth talking about these days. Have I your word that what we say here is between us and has no existence beyond these walls?
Very well.
And if the King should command you to repeat what I have said,
I should keep my word to
then
you.
What has become of your oath of obedience to the King?
You lay traps for me?
No, I show you the time.
Why do you insult me with these lawyer's tricks?
Because I'm afraid.
Here is your answer. The King accepts your resignation very sadly. He is mindful of your goodness and past loyalty, and in any matter concerning your honor and welfare, he will be your good lord. So much for your fear.
You will convey my humble gratitude.
I will.
It's an interesting challenge and luxury when you're taking such a well-known thing such as Shrek and basically reimagining it and reconstructing it, yet also being true to what people expect. So there's Jason Moore, our director, always talks about managing expectations, and by definition, the creation of a musical, especially something based on something like a film, is going to be inherently different because just what it takes to make a musical, the guts of it and the cogs of the machine that are required are different. And so right there you have a definitive departure, from the original source, which gives you great liberation and great freedom to explore what that story is in the context of a theatrical version of that story. And in doing so, you have this music, you have this design and the set, you have this kind of point of view that the creators have given us, the actors, to execute, that is familiar yet completely unique, which to me makes it all worth the while, because you're breathing life into something that hasn't existed before, even though people are familiar with it. And so obviously there's an awareness, and I feel a particular responsibility in honoring what's come before in the great performance of Mike Myers and all of these great actors who have inhabited these characters on film. You want to keep that ball in the air, and I think that we've done that.
Now, talk about the look, your makeup, how long it takes you to get ready, and when you first saw yourself all done up for the photo shoot, what went through your mind?
Well, I wonder what people think when they see these things and they see me being interviewed, and they think, that's Shrek? That's terrible. He doesn't look like Shrek, unless I'm completely delusional. But the truth of the matter is that the design of the makeup is breathtaking. It's extraordinary. I mean, it makes me laugh because it tickles me to think how incredible the transformation is. It takes an hour and a half to get into it, which seems like a long time, but I've been told that this were the feature film version of it would take about 4 hours to do. It is. When I first saw it, I literally, it kind of scrambled my brain a little bit because I could see myself in there, but what was presented in the mirror was such a different being. And what I was really very relieved and bolstered by is when Bill Damashki, the producer, and Jason Moore, the director, and Tim Hatley, the designer, all saw me for the first time in this makeup and costume. They had the same reaction, which made me feel like, oh, good. What they want is what's happening with this, and particularly for me as an actor and having this part, that okay, good. I still have the job here. I'm not. I look like Shrek, which is a big question mark. So to answer your question shortly, it's just breathtaking.
Well, what attracted me to Pal Joey at the beginning was this sort of iconic Rodgers and Hart musical that had yet to be brought into a place of prominence in the catalog of musical theater. It was sort of out there somewhere, right? No one knew exactly what it was. No one really knew exactly what it was about. This brilliant score. This story about the anti-hero, this sort of a heel. Well, what's it about? It's about a character study of a guy named Joey Evans and his search for making his dream a reality. And that dream is to make a bunch of people happy all at once. And along the way, it's kind of a tangled web for somebody like that who will do anything to succeed. And his passion for performing, his passion for people, his passion for self-gratification gets him into some hot spots.
Arthur Miller's Tony Award-winning play, All My Sons, first took Broadway by storm in 1947. This timeless drama is back on Broadway at the Schoenfeld Theater, this time in a newly imagined production directed by Simon McBurney. The starry cast includes John Lithgow, Diane Wiest, Patrick Wilson, and making her Broadway debut, Katie Holmes. Miller took his inspiration from a true story. All My Sons tells the story of a successful businessman, Joe Keller, played by John Lithgow, who knowingly sold the government defective airline parts during World War II with tragic consequences. The truth comes out and his life unravels when his son, Chris, played by Patrick Wilson, prepares to marry his business partner's daughter, Anne, played by Katie Holmes.
I play Frank Luby, who's one of the next-door neighbors who helps do the horoscope for Kate, who Diane Weiss plays, to see if maybe her son is still alive and kind of keep hope alive, whether or not it's true hope. And it's a little funny, it's a little sad, the character, but he's very earnest. I think he's very representative of that 1940s idealism that you might see in Mad Men kind of on TV right now.
What the play means to you?
Play, to me, is just a great exploration of what America and American family is about, and whether or not we make choices that are in the best interests of our country or our family. What happens when those conflict? Is there a greater good? You know, these very important things, especially during a presidential election. So I really feel it's a great piece for people to come to the theater and talk about what's important in their lives and what kind of a country they want to live in. And I really think that it deals with that.
Great, elated. I'm so happy that we're open, and the reception tonight was extraordinary. The audience was like, I don't remember this in my long history on Broadway. 1978 was my first show, so 30 years later, it's remarkable to see this kind of warmth and welcoming. The audience was extraordinary. So.
Talk about the role that you play and what the play means to you.
Well, Sue Bayless is kind of the disenfranchised American. She is experiencing the loss of, through the war. She needs money. It's a great character. And the play, to watch it every night, as our director has brilliantly conceived, more and more, I hear more and more. Arthur Miller's words are so deep. Every night you hear more things that are so relevant to today. It's a play that's as absolutely current as anything you've seen that was written yesterday. Written in 1947, but every bit as significant today.
We did a terrible thing. We can never be forgiven. Not even to send him a card at Christmas? I didn't even see him once since I came back from the war. Annie, you don't know what was done to that man. You don't know what happened.
Of course I know.
You can't know. You wouldn't be here.
Well, I play Katie Holmes' brother who comes to grab her back. He finds out that their father was wrongly accused to this family that she's about to marry into. So it's quite an intense moment where I go there and try to get her out, and the family doesn't want, and she doesn't want to leave. So it's like a struggle to get the family in order. And that, for me, is the theme of my life, getting our families in order. Who is our family? Is it just our nuclear family, or is it a larger family? And what do we owe, and what are we responsible to? So it's a timeless message for me personally, and for us as the country right now. And there's nothing more timely than this play, written in 1947.
I play Dr. Bayless, who's a sort of a bitter man who longs for a different life, as a lot of the characters in the play do. And this is a beautiful play that I had read and didn't appreciate, and so we started working on it. And I think it's so about right now, and there's so many important things to say.
I was fast asleep, and remember how he used to fly low past the house when he was in training, when we saw his face in the cockpit going by? Well, that's the way I saw him, only high up, way up where the clouds are.
What the play means to me is, it's all about like how it's not just the four, people who are like there. It's this how society, when you grew up in the suburbs and the neighbors are there. It's all about how it all feeds in and how you're a part of this community. It's all about you growing up in your community and how close you are to your neighbors and how one little fluctuation can like devastate things. It's like you care about them as though they're in your personal family. So for me, it's just an extension of that concept of like how your friends are the family you choose. Truly, you know what I mean? It's unbelievable. It's a really thrilling play.
Well, it's a play not just for written in 1947, but it's a play for now. It's talking about now. It's talking about the nature of what happens when money is the only thing that you want, and you lose all sense of morality. So, if that sounds heavy, it's not. It's extraordinarily gripping as a play. I mean, it's absolutely compelling what Miller has done with it, and it's also terrifying. And it's unbearably sad because it's about people who are caught within a system, just as people are caught within a system now when they're losing their houses after this mortgage crash, after this incredible economic crisis. And you can see what happens when you put your faith in the idea that, only money is important. Well, what Miller's suggesting is that there are more things that are important than just money, and that somehow the idea of being prisoner of economics of the economy is, in a sense, it undermines what being an American is all about, in which there is decency, there is a sense of your fellow compatriots, there is a sense of your country, which if you only care about money, you're only grubbing for yourself.
And let's talk about the wonderful cast you put together.
John Lithgow, unbelievable, incredibly open. Diane Wiest, just the most extraordinary person I've ever worked with. Patrick Wilson, he is... Tonight, he was just phenomenal. Katie Holmes, amazing. She'd been on stage very little before this, and she was so open and so ready to take everything on that it's humbling, really. And she's extraordinarily modest. And then you've got the amazing supporting cast of Christian Camargo, who is just phenomenally talented. Becky Baker, great, talented New York actress. Damian Young, phenomenal. Incredible Dr. Bayliss. It's like a kind of definitive performance. And then Danielle Furland, who of course was the original star for Into the Woods, and she's just, the moment she comes on stage, she lights it up. And Jordan Gelber.
It's great, I mean, it's funny. We all, whether it's the stage work or the film work or the musical work, there's a lot of musical theater guys in the cast, guys and gals. So that's been pretty fun. We all have such a varied career, but to come at it with one goal, which is to tell this story, it's great. It really has just been a great process.
What was the rehearsals like? This must have been so great to work in the rehearsal room on this.
Yeah, a lot of it just felt like college, doing lots of the things that that people make fun of actors for, the trust exercise and the games that all have their place, and building camaraderie and a relationship with each other physically, and it's. And then we got to the text, so we would spend half the day not even touching the text and just working on our bodies and voice. So,
what's been the best part of the experience of coming back to the theater and working on stage?
I think just being able to play this role, from start to finish. I mean, just you don't get a chance like this a lot. It's just, and it's an important play. And how often do you get to do something that's really you feel is really important?
And he's gone forever. You're sure?
I almost got married 2 years ago.
Well, why didn't you?
You started to write to me.
You felt something that far back?
Every day since.
Anne, why didn't you let me know?
I was waiting for you, Chris. Till then, you never wrote, and when you did, what did you say? You sure can be ambiguous,
Give me a kiss, Anne. Give me...
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I think that the show went well, and it's just very exciting to be in this play with these actors and with this director. I feel so happy.
Tell me what the experience has been like working with the play. Did you know it well before you started?
I did, but I have to say I didn't, I feel like what I thought it was is so different now to me. after, rehearsing this and really getting to know these characters in this way and working with Simon and working with these other actors, it's been a wonderful journey.
What was it like meeting Simon the first time, the discussions you had?
Great. I mean, he's incredibly intelligent and very inspiring, and he always has great ideas, and he's very helpful.
Talk about working with this great ensemble you get to work with 8 times a week, what it's like playing with them.
It's very exciting. So exciting. I mean, John and Diane and Patrick and Christian and, everyone is just Danielle, it's just Damien, it's just wonderful.
I mean, it's terrific that we've gotten such a strong response, because even greater than we ever expected. I mean, I'm amazed by this. We all hoped and thought that it would strike chords in this day and age, but we had no idea. I mean, people are just devastated by this play.
Talk about the relevance of the piece when you were working in the rehearsal room, and it's so relevant today, what that means.
Yes, but, as with all, it's the best way to work on a revival is to concentrate on its own time and the events of its time. I mean, we immersed ourselves in World War II and the tremendous fever to produce material for the war effort. There's a great poster, or a photograph, Roosevelt urging all these factories to keep on, and the poster says, speed, speed, speed. It's like, don't stop for a second. There was this breathless need to create war material, and that's the root of the problem. Everybody was they were so frantic, they were ready to let a little mistake slip by, which cost lives. It's to really delve into the time, and that's what makes it resonant for today. Just because.
Talk about working with Simon McBurney, that first meeting you had with him.
I don't know if you've met the man, but if you meet him, you end up doing anything for him. He's so charismatic, and he's brilliant. He's so captivating, and his eyes light up, and his ideas are so engrossing. And he just gets a company he's a company builder. I mean, he has his own great company in England, Complicité, and he sort of turned us into his company in the course of 2 months.
I'm in business! The man is in business! 120 cracks, you're out of business! You got a process. The process don't work, you're out of business! You don't know how to operate, your stuff's no good, they close you up, they tear up your contracts. What the hell's it to them? You lay 40 years into a business and they knock you out in 5 minutes. What could I do? Let them take 40 years? Let them take my life away!